Welcome to our program, Where is Truth? We're so glad that you have joined us. I'm Norm Peckham, and with me here is Dr. Ariel Roth, our local scientist, author. We're so glad that you're here with us. Tonight's discussion is a very timely one. It has to do with how long has the earth been here, how long has life been here, and this seems to be a very contentious issue. Why so?
Well, time is an issue that causes a great deal of controversy. Whenever you enter in a discussion between Bible and science, that issue seems to pop up sooner or later. There's such a great difference between the biblical model of origins and the scientific model of origins that it's not surprising. The Bible suggests God doesn't need time. He creates the whole world and all life and so on. He does it all in 1 week. On the other hand, evolution needs billions of years, and the billions of years they have are totally inadequate for the improbabilities that they have to deal with. Still, they have to have a lot of time there at least for even a suggestion that maybe their model can work and that things evolved by themselves over such a long period of time.
So what are some of the detailed things that, some of the evidences that we might see?
Issues are related to how much time do you want for what part that you're dealing with. In other words, the question gets very complex. Questions like, how long has life been on Earth? How old is the solar system? How old is the universe? These are issues that come into discussion when you're discussing science and the Bible. And it depends on your model. Scientists in general suggest maybe the universe is about 13 billion years old. Earth probably 4.6 billion years old and so on. And on the other hand, the Bible clearly implies that life on Earth here has only been here for a few thousand years. The Bible doesn't directly suggest how old the solar system is, how old the universe is, and so on. Those are issues that are sometimes discussed. We're not sure.
So when do scientists say how long life has been here?
Scientists, of course, feel life has been here for at least 3.5 billion years, and evolved over that time to our present advanced state. The Bible has some texts that suggest that maybe there was an earth here before. I'm speaking of 2 Peter 3:5. Or Genesis 1 verses 1 and 2 seems to suggest something was here before God starts his creation thing. But the big issue is, how long has life been here on Earth? Evolutionists claim 3.5 billion years. Creationists claim a few thousand years. We don't know exactly because the Bible, different interpretations of the Bible give you different dates, but just a few thousand years.
Well, that obviously sets up a real contest.
And this is the real issue.
So the scientists say, what's some of their evidence?
Well, immediately, probably the most common mentioned bit of evidence is radiometric dating.
Okay.
And you have a picture here of the Grand Canyon. You notice arrows and various figures. For instance, near the bottom of the canyon there, you see 540 MA. That means 540 million years.
Okay.
A little higher up, 350 million years. And you have fossils organisms in here, so life was here at that time, according to their interpretation. Higher up, you've got 240 million years, right near the top there. And so you see you've got an orderly sequence there, and this is the way some of these radiometric dates turn out. But then on the upper left-hand corner there, you notice an arrow going to the left. There's a lava flow up there, a little bit to the left where it's you can see in the picture, and there's 2,600 million years. So you've got a much older date on top of these younger dates, which tells you a little bit about some of the problems we face in connection with radiometric dating. There are various things that can affect these radiometric dates. The basic principle of radiometric dating is sound, that is, radioactive disintegration. That seems to be fairly sound interpretation. Some creationists suggest, well, maybe God changed things, and that is possible. But excluding that, we seem to get a number of dates, they're quite old. And some of them agree with each other, and many of them don't, and many of them do. But there are some factors like maybe hydrostatic pressure, which is very interesting. That's the pressure of water. During the flood, seems to affect these dates. There's an article published in the Journal of Science, top leading science journal, which suggests maybe the pressure of the water affected the dates because it prevented the escape of argon in the potassium-argon dating, and the more argon you have, the older it appears. So that young lava flows can appear very old because of the pressure of the water deeper down.
That might be what's shown on the picture here.
And this gets involved in these various dates that we're talking about and so on. A picture here of an island. I was flying by this one morning. Flying into Auckland, New Zealand. Took this picture. You see that green arrow there pointing to it. You go up into that island. It's a volcanic island. You find some wood. You date it by carbon-14, it'll date as young as 350 years. You date the rock in which you find the wood, and some of them date as much as 485,000 years by potassium-argon.
Okay.
And again, they say, well, excess argon was caught in there. The thing is considered to be more than just a few centuries old. Is the date that's generally accepted for this. So it's just an example, an exception that we have. You can go to Nevada and pick up some live snails. You date them by carbon-14, and they'll date 27,000 years old because there's very little carbon-14 in the environment they're in. So this is what we're saying here is that there are a lot of radiometric dates that work. There are a lot of reasons why radiometric dates don't work, and there are factors that could have been important during the flood that might have affected those radiometric dates.
So that basically says don't get too arbitrary and too factual about any of these dates.
Right, exactly. That's
okay.
Now, there are other issues that are raised about time. For instance, coral reefs are supposed to take a very long time to grow. The prime examples here in the picture, Eniwetok Atoll. I spent several months there actually doing research on that atoll there, and it's out there in the Pacific. It's made out of coral material. It's not all that deep. Below the wing of the airplane there, you can see an island, and the length of that island is about the depth of the coral that you have in that atoll. But some say, well, it'd take hundreds of thousands of years to grow that. Some even suggest into the millions per se. But that is really not a good argument because there are some coral that can grow very fast, as much as a foot a year almost.
But if conditions were a little different, it might have grown at a different rate than we're looking at now?
Right, it might have been even faster.
Yeah.
But these are ideal conditions for the fastest rates we have now. On the other hand, this is possible.
Sure.
This is possible. Another issue that comes up quite often is related to fossil reefs. And if you look in the skyline and in the picture there, you have the famous Permian Reef, probably the most studied reef, fossil reef in the world. And some say, well, that would take a long time to grow. Well, we're not sure that that's a reef. There are some fossil reefs that we know are reefs. They're small and so on. But this one, it's made of sponges mostly. Sponges are not known to build significant reefs, and the orientation of the sponges, it seems to be very random. A lot of the sponges are bottom side up. Some are upright and so on. It does not seem to be structure that where the organisms were preserved, at least in upright position.
So maybe it's just a dumping ground.
It could be just a dumping ground as you'd expect during the worldwide flood.
I see.
Type of thing. And then people raise questions about glacial vars, the annual layers in glaciers, and they talk about annual 100,000 layers in Greenland and 400,000 layers in Antarctica. And you can't see these layers except in the top part in Greenland, the top half in Greenland, you can see them and so on. Lower down, the picture gets much more complicated, and you have try and detect dust and so on, and it depends on how you calibrate your instruments as to how many layers you're going to get, all that type of thing. Antarctica is another problem. It depends on assumptions that you have certain cycles. They notice there that they try to relate to cycles in the ocean, that they try to relate to cycles, Milankovitch cycles they call them, and so on. You have assumptions based upon assumptions based upon assumptions. This is not data that is very convincing regarding how long life has been here on Earth.
Well, so there are some problems with radiometric dating. Are there other evidences apart from that and the reefs and so on?
Well, what most scientists, suggest, it's millions of years, it's billions of years. No question life has been there and so on. And they tend to favor and accept that kind of data. Mm-hmm. But in spite of that, you can find some data that suggests, hey, no, there are problems with these billions of years that are suggested that life has been here on Earth. And we're going to cover 8 of them here, and let me just review them very quickly here. One, rates of erosion are way too fast. Our continents should be gone. Flat gaps in the sedimentary layers suggest, hey, there's not much time between those layers where we have gaps. Residual carbon should not be there. Human reproduction rates way too fast for supposed age for man. Good evidence of human activity is recent. Soft tissue in ancient dinosaurs. Geologic time too short for evolution.
Let's take a look at some of these.
And mutations too common for survival. Yes, yeah. We'll go right through each one of these here. First, talking about erosion. We're all familiar with erosion. Rivers keep carrying material to the oceans. Well, if you study rates of erosion, you find that our continents should have been washed away a long time ago if these layers that have these fossils and so on have been around for these billions of years. Geologists became aware of this about half a century ago. One statement made at that time here from a textbook, Evolution of the Earth. It says, North America is being denuded at a rate that could level it in a mere 10 million years. Or to put it another way, at the same rate, 10 North Americas could have been eroded since Middle Cretaceous time 100 million years ago.
So this is saying that the land masses would have been eroded away in much less time than the long periods of time that are given, or that are talked about.
Exactly, that's what we're trying to say. And these geologists admit there, apparently we have erred badly in making our assumptions.
Yeah, right.
The average rate of erosion that is calculated, if you look at all the continents of the Earth, is about 61 millimeters per 1,000 years. Well, now, that seems very slow. But when you suggest, hey, hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years, billions of years, pretty soon you've gotten rid of all your continents.
You run out of dirt.
In fact, as that mentioned in that previous slide there, if you're eroding your continents, in 10 million years and so on, you could have eroded your continents, several hundred times in the proposed age of the continents, say 2.5, 3 billion years.
Yeah.
The rates, 61 millimeters and so on, would get rid of everything. And so what do geologists suggest? Well, they suggest, well, no, the mountains, the reason we have mountains is that they're renewed from below. Well, this doesn't fit at all. Look at this picture here. These are some layers. They're supposed to be 150 million years old. It's in eastern France, and folded layers and so on. Why are they still there if our average rates of erosion are so fast? They should be gone, and gone many times. Now, when you correct for agriculture, which speeds up erosion, you still have a problem, and one can safely say, according to expected rates of erosion in the past, probably our continents could have been eroded away 100 times in the suggested time of their age. Well, another interesting point is related to between layers. There are gaps between layers. And the way we know there are gaps is because in other parts of the world, there are layers that fill those gaps.
Fill those gaps.
So we're talking about places where parts of the geolite column are missing. Now here's a picture of the Grand Canyon. You notice 3 arrows there, and the tip of the arrows point at the gaps. Top one, 6 million years. Well, in 6 million years, according to average rates of erosion for the continents of the Earth, we'd expect 600 feet of erosion. And you notice right at the bottom of that whitish layer clear across the whole picture, it's very flat. Why didn't we have any erosion in that 6 million years? Well, this suggests that time did not take place, and we'd expect much more. 14 million years lower down, and then 100 million years, we'd expect 10,000 feet of erosion. And we'll discuss that more later in some of our further discussions, but this is a very telling argument that it looks like those layers were laid down quite rapidly during the Genesis flood. Then coal and other carbon, old ones, you know. Here's some coal layers. These are supposed to be maybe 70, 80 million years old, but you go down to older coal layers and so on and so forth. You find carbon-14 in there. This is kind of a shock because
it shouldn't be there that long.
Carbon-14 disintegrates. Carbon-14 is good for dating short periods and so on, but by the time you reach 300,000 years, there should be no carbon left whatsoever. Then you go down to these coal layers that are hundreds of millions of years old, and you find carbon-14 still there. It's like going into a cave and you see a candle burning, and your guide tells you that candle's been burning there for 3,000 years. You don't believe him.
No.
And you go to these old layers, there should be no carbon-14 there, like that candle should have burned out a long time ago. Carbon-14 should have disintegrated. It's still there. And this is not an isolated situation. Here's a chart that shows you 70 samples here, less than 2 decades of the dates and so on. These are all showing you carbon-14 in there, except for one of them. And why is it there? There should be no carbon-14 there.
The only answer to that, I mean, the logical answer is that it didn't take that long.
This suggests the level of carbon-14 there was before the flood, after creation, and that's why we still find it in there. At that level. Then there's human population growth. You know, we're growing at a tremendous rate. Our population is doubling every 60 years right now. It was going even faster a few years ago. But here's a picture of Loma Linda, where we live. And you notice a white building there, and the one at the left was taken in 1971. And 34 years later, in 2005, you have the right picture. Notice beyond that hospital, all the buildings that are in the San Bernardino Valley in 2005 compared to very few buildings in 1971. This illustrates, you know, we're growing. Well, if man has been around for 500,000 years, some would say 1 million, and so on. It depends on how you want to define man, type of thing. Why did he not fill the earth a long time ago? It only, at our present rates of reproduction, only takes a few thousand years to fill the earth to our present level. And if we've been here for, let's say, 500,000 years, we should have filled the earth a long, long time ago. No, we're still, we seem to be growing our first crop of people. And this chart here, almost hard to believe, but I hope you can see that red line along the bottom and along the right side. That's a curve of the human population. You can see, and they suggest very slow growth there for the first million years. And then all of a sudden, tremendous growth, which is the rapid growth we were talking about. A curve like this demands explanation.
Yes.
And the explanation, I think, is more reasonable. Well, man hasn't been that long. Man grows, he reproduces quite rapidly. He hasn't been that long. He's only been here for a few thousand years. Then you look at various things man has left. Pyramids, buildings. These are some buildings about 1,000 years old in Mesa Verde and so on. Aqueducts.
Man leaves tracks.
He leaves tracks, but they're all recent.
Yeah, nothing old.
And writing, our writing is just a few thousand years old. These very things suggest man has not been around here that long. These are things that challenge these long geologic ages that we suggest. And then recently, they found soft tissue in dinosaurs. These are dinosaur bones here. But in Montana, they found a dinosaur about 80 million years old, supposed to be in. It had soft tissue, it had osteocyte cells, had blood vessel-like tissue.
That should have been gone a long time ago.
Most scientists think that proteins should not last more than 100,000 years. Yeah. Type of thing. Here we're talking 60, 80 million years still there. Then there's the question of origin of life. You don't have enough time in these billions of years to originate life. Picture of a chain of amino acids at the left, protein at the right. You have to get those amino acids in the right order. The first one's only one chance out of 20 to have the right amino acid. Second one, one chance out of 400 that you'll get the first two correct. And only one chance out of 8,000 that you get the first three correct, and so on. So how long is it going to take to get a protein? A protein with 100 specific amino acids, according to Dr. Yoki at University of California at Berkeley, would take 10 to the 23 years if your oceans were filled up with amino acids and they were exchanging and so on. And that's, you know, way longer. The universe is only about 10 to 11, 10 to the 10th years. The Earth is only 10 to the 9th power year. So geologic time way too short for this. And then one of the latest things that has come up is that the rates of mutations are way too fast for the human race to have survived. When a new child comes into the picture, as we see here, they have 60 mutations. Mutations are often detrimental. This is degeneration. You'd have to have tremendous rates of evolution to just provide enough good mutations to provide this. And the question is, how has man survived if he's been around for 500,000 years with such a detrimental rate of mutations? Another time problem that we have here as we look at this. Well, we've gone over these quite rapidly. Let me just review what we've suggested here. These are challenges to those long geologic ages. One, rates of erosion are way too fast. Our continents should have been washed away many, many times. Flat gaps between sedimentary layers suggest, hey, there hasn't been the time suggested for those, the millions of years suggested at those gaps. Carbon-14 should not be in those very old layers. It should have disintegrated a long, long time ago. Human reproduction is way too fast. The Earth should have been filled up a long, long time ago if those long geologic ages are correct. The good evidence for humanity is recent. I'm speaking of writing and buildings and so on. Soft tissue in ancient dinosaurs, a total surprise. Should have disintegrated. And geologic time is way too short for the improbabilities of evolution. And finally, mutations, harmful mutations, we're discovering way too common in order for survival to take place. It looks like we've only been here as human beings for a few thousand years, according to this scientific data.
We have seen there have been a lot of controversy having to do with time. And yet we have seen that there are issues that are available to be viewed out there in nature that give us pause, give us questions that we should consider as we ponder how long things have been here. We can use our heads, we can use our minds, and let's do that. And we'll continue with this discussion of time when we come back next time and look for more of Where is Truth? If you would like additional free information about these discussions, there is a PowerPoint resource available on the internet that covers many more details than could be provided in this lecture series. The resource is titled The Bible and Science and is available at scienceandscriptures.com. Be sure to add an S at the end of the word Scriptures to get to the right web page. The Bible and Science resource follows the same sequence of topics as the Where is Truth series, but it is divided into 17 separate discussions instead of the 14 videos of the Where is Truth series. The title of the discussions, an introductory outline, and an index will lead you to the topics you want. The Bible and Science discussions served as the resource for the Where is Truth videos.